Hello and welcome back to VEDS. Today I want to start a series on one of my favorite runs of comics, Chris Claremont and Alan Davis's Excalibur. But this is very much a cult classic run of comics, so I don't expect that many people will know what it is just going into this. And so before anything else, I wanted to start by giving some background on Excalibur, the creators behind it, and the publication history of the books that were infused within it. So let's start by traveling back to 1963, when the X-Men debuted. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the X-Men were a teenage group of mutant heroes who were protecting a world that hated and feared them. And they were not very successful. They were definitely on the lower end of Marvel titles in the 60s, and so it didn't take long for Marvel to cut the cord on them and just start reprinting older issues. But then, a little over a decade later, Lee Wein and Dave Cockrum came together in 1975 to make all new, all different X-Men. A new team which included fan favorite characters like Wolverine, Storm, and my boy, Nightcrawler. And it was not rare that while working on the book, Wein and Cockrum would be given unsolicited advice and feedback from a young intern at Marvel, Chris Claremont. So after All New, All Different had launched, it didn't take long for Chris Claremont to come on the creative team as the head writer, which would be the beginning to one of the most successful runs of comics ever. Claremont went on to write Uncanny X-Men into the 90s and would grow the fan base through very popular stories like the Dark Phoenix saga, God Loves Man Kills, and Days of Future Past. He also expanded the line with a teenage book, The New Mutants, and a spin-off for fan favorite Wolverine. Meanwhile, across the pond we find our second creative, Alan Davis. Alan Davis was a young and up-and-coming artist who was drawing for Marvel's UK imprint. And in 1981, he teamed up with Dave Thorpe to redesign a character named Captain Britain, who was co-created in the 70s by one Chris Claremont. The redesign and new title was a success, but it wasn't until Alan Moore took over for Dave Thorpe that it became the definitive Captain Britain run. Though at the time it was never published outside of the UK, and since then reprintings have been a very rare deal due to copyright, it was one of the most successful comics in Britain at the time. Davis and Moore were the perfect creatives to come in at the perfect time. And one of the best things about it is that over the course of that Captain Britain run, you could see their talents come into full bloom. Moore's scripts got tighter and he started adding in more thematic material as well as political commentary, which would become the hallmark of his later, more prestigious and well-known stories like Watchmen or V for Vendetta. And Alan Davis would go on to clean up his drawings quite a bit and become one of the leading artists in his field. Eventually that run came to an end, and Moore left Marvel for DC. And Davis would move on, later stating that he thought he was done with the character of Captain Britain. And it was around this time that Chris Claremont, who had been keeping an eye on the Captain Britain stuff and was greatly enjoying it, started to bring some elements over into the X-book. Our two stories merge in 1986, when Davis and Claremont would collaborate for the first time on a New Mutants annual. Claremont was very impressed with Davis's art and would continue to collaborate with him sporadically on the Uncanny X-Men line, and one more time in New Mutants. He even asked Davis to come on full-time to Uncanny X-Men, but Davis declined. Despite this, their time collaborating had not come to an end. Like I said, Claremont was interested in the Captain Britain lore, and he had an idea about a crossover book. Approaching Davis, they began to work out the details. A new book in the X line that would lean just as much into comedy as it does superhero shenanigans. A sci-fi fantasy that takes inspiration from things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Speed Racer, and Doctor Who. Which leads into 1987's Excalibur, The Sword is Drawn, the graphic novel that would begin it all. And also the place we will pick up next Tuesday. So friends and fellow Vedsies, thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow.